Among the countless tales of the Norse gods, one name burns brighter and darker than all the rest. Loki, the Trickster. Born of fire and shadow, master of illusions and chaos, a figure both loved and feared. He walked among the gods of Asgard, yet never truly belonged. His words could heal or wound, his laughter could unite or tear worlds apart. Was he friend or foe? Savior or destroyer? From his cunning were born monsters that would shake the 9 realms, and from his schemes would rise the doom of gods themselves. This is not just a story, it is the legend of Loki, the god who turned mischief into destiny. Before the birth of men, when the 9 realms was still raw and trembling, there was a place where fire and ice clashed in endless war. From the flames of Muspelheim and the frost of Jotunheim, strange beings were born, giants, spirits, creatures that walked between light and dark. Among them, one child stood apart. His name was Loki. He was no ordinary son of giants. His father, Farbor carried the fury of the storm in his veins, while his mother, Laufey, was of shadow and subtlety. From this union came not strength nor wisdom, but something far more dangerous, cunning. In his eyes burned a flame that did not warm, but deceived. In his smile hid promises that could never be trusted. The gods would later say Loki was shaped not by stone or flesh, but by lies themselves. He was not the strongest among giants, nor the bravest, nor the wisest. Yet in every gathering, in every clash, it was Loki whose voice turned victory into ruin and ruin into triumph. Even as a child, he would twist words as if they were threads of fate, binding or breaking destinies at his whim. From the very beginning, he was an outsider. The giants did not trust him, for he was too sly. The gods would never truly welcome him, for he was not of their kind. Loki belonged to neither world, and in that loneliness was born his greatest gift and his greatest curse. The Norns, who weave the destiny of all, whispered of him, "This one will be laughter and doom. His steps will shake halls of men and gods alike. He will save them, he will betray them, and through him the end of all things shall come." Thus began the tale of Loki, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the god who would one day smile at the end of the world. Loki's childhood was not measured in years but in tricks. While other children of giants hurled stones and tested their strength, Loki tested words. He could whisper to one warrior that another mocked him, and soon fists would fly while Loki slipped away laughing. He stole fire from the hearts of his kin, not for warmth but to see how panic spread when shadows leapt against the cave walls. His tongue was sharper than any blade. He learned early that power did not always come from muscle or steel, but from the moment of hesitation, the seed of doubt planted in another's mind. A single sentence, spoken at the right moment, could topple a leader more quickly than any sword. Loki made such games his art. But deceit is never free. His kin began to fear him. Mothers would warn their children, "Do not look into Loki's eyes, for they will promise you wonders and leave you with ashes." Warriors turned their backs on him, for none could know if his friendship would last a day or a breath. He became a wanderer, too dangerous to trust, too clever to cast aside. And yet, in solitude, Loki discovered his other gift. The blood of giants and spirits gave him the power to shift his form. He could become a bird and vanish into the skies, a fish darting through rivers, even a woman with a voice as sweet as honey. No shape could hold him for long, and no cage could bind him. The giants whispered that he was cursed, born of fire that never dies. But Loki did not see it as a curse. To him, it was freedom. Freedom to escape, to deceive, to weave chaos wherever he pleased. And already, though the Norns had foretold his fate, Loki dreamed of greater stages for his mischief than the halls of Jotunheim. For even then, the trickster's eyes turned toward Asgard, the shining realm of the gods. When the Allfather wandered the 9 realms in search of wisdom and allies, his one eye saw far beyond strength. Odin knew the power of blades, but he also knew there were wars that could not be won by steel alone. He sought cunning, guile, and the secrets of those who walked between worlds. And so his path crossed with Loki. Loki greeted Odin not as a humble servant, but as an equal. His words were silver, his smile dangerous. "You are a king among gods," a Loki said, "but even kings need shadows. Light shines brightest when the darkness is near." Odin listened, for in Loki he heard both danger and promise. The two drank together beneath an ancient oak, their laughter echoing through the night. By dawn, Odin extended his hand. Not as a master to a servant, but as a brother to a brother. They cut their palms, and their blood mingled. From that moment, Loki was bound to Odin by an oath no force could easily break, brotherhood sealed in blood and fire. The easy, proud gods of Asgard were not pleased. They looked upon Loki with suspicion, muttering that the son of giants could bring nothing but trouble. But Odin silenced them. "He is my blood brother," said the Allfather. "E'en what strength cannot win, his wit shall gain." Thus Loki entered Asgard, not as prisoner, nor guest, but as kin. He walked the golden halls of Valaskjaf and feasted beneath the shining roof of Valhalla. He sat among gods and spoke as one of them. Yet though his seat was earned by oath, whispers followed him everywhere. The gods called him sly. They called him liar. They called him dangerous. Loki only smiled, for in every insult he heard an admission that they feared him. And fear was a weapon sharper than Gungnir, Odin's mighty spear. From that day forward, Loki, son of fire and shadows, was bound to the fate of the gods themselves. A bond of loyalty and betrayal. As Loki stepped into the golden halls of Asgard, the light reflected off the polished floors, dancing across towering columns and banners that told the tales of gods long before men walked Midgard. Every corner whispered with power, every shadow seemed alive. To the other gods, Loki was a stranger, an outsider who had slipped between worlds, but to him, Asgard was a stage. He moved with a grace that made mortals and immortals alike uneasy. When Thor swung his hammer in triumph, Loki's smile hinted at mischief waiting in the wings. When Frigg offered counsel to Odin, Loki's eyes flickered with questions that no god dared to ask aloud. He observed, he listened, and he waited, always waiting for the perfect moment to tilt the balance of power, ever so slightly, in his favor. The gods, proud and unyielding, were captivated and wary. Every jest Loki made seemed harmless, but each one carried a hidden edge. At feasts, he would compliment Thor's strength while planting doubt about his temper. He praised Freyja's beauty while suggesting her heart might not be fully loyal. Even Odin, wise beyond time, felt a twinge of unease. Loki's words were like smoke, soft, swirling, intangible, yet potent enough to suffocate certainty. And yet, for all the tension he sowed, Loki saved them more than once. When giants attempted to breach Asgard's gates, it was Loki's cunning that uncovered hidden paths and ambushes. When magical traps threatened the halls, Loki's insight often turned disaster into triumph. He was a paradox, the hand that lifted and the hand that struck. Even the winds seemed to whisper his name as he walked among the golden spires. Loki, they breathed, a warning and a promise all at once. The child of fire and shadows, neither fully god nor fully giant, had become indispensable. And though the gods sensed the storm behind his smile, they could not yet see its full fury. In that first chapter of his life among the Easy, Loki's path was clear: observe, manipulate, survive. Every glance, every word, every movement was a thread in a tapestry of mischief and destiny, a tapestry that would one day unravel the very halls he now walked. The gods of Asgard faced a challenge that threatened to undo their golden sanctuary. A master builder from Jotunheim had offered to raise walls around the realm so formidable that no giant could breach them. Yet his price was monstrous: the sun, the moon, and the goddess Freyja herself. Panic rippled through the halls. The gods were proud, but even pride could not pay such a toll. Into this crisis stepped Loki, ever the shadow and the light. "Fear not," he whispered to Odin, "for there is always a way." His plan was not of brute force but of cunning. He played upon the builder's pride, whispered doubts into his ears, and twisted the truth with a grin that promised both delight and danger. As the days passed, the walls rose, taller and stronger than any the gods had imagined. Yet the builder's eyes betrayed growing impatience. The final night approached, the night when the price would be claimed. Loki, ever restless, had already woven the threads of his trickery. Disguised as a mare, he lured the builder's mighty stallion away, leaving the giant unable to complete his task. By dawn, the walls stood finished, untouched by the wrath of the builder, the sun and moon untouched, Freyja safe. The gods cheered, unaware that their victory was the work of a creature they both trusted and feared. Thor, ever blunt and boisterous, would have called him reckless. Odin, wise yet wary, nodded in reluctant approval. It was the first major triumph that bore Loki's signature, a solution wrapped in chaos, a gift draped in danger. The walls of Asgard stood as a monument to his cunning, a warning that even the smallest trickster could alter the fate of gods. In the golden halls, whispers of admiration and suspicion grew side by side. Loki smiled, knowing the seed of his legend had been planted. Every stone in those walls seemed to hum with his laughter, a silent echo of mischief that no armor could contain. And somewhere in the shadows, the winds carried his name, Loki, the one who bends fate without breaking a sweat. Loki's true power was not strength nor sword, but the ability to slip between forms as easily as water flows between stones. A god, a giant, a bird, a fish, a mare, no shape could bind him for long. The very air seemed to bend to his will, carrying whispers of his presence before he arrived. To the gods, this was both marvel and terror. To Loki, it was freedom incarnate. He learned early that appearances could deceive, that even the mightiest could be outwitted by a mind that knew no bounds. He would take the form of a falcon to spy on Odin's council, then slip into the shape of a servant to overhear secrets whispered in confidence. A single glance from his shifting eyes could hide intentions as easily as it could reveal lies. But with each transformation came a thrill, a hunger that could never be sated. Loki delighted in the chaos he left behind, roaring alarms as the halls filled with confusion, whispered rumors as the gods struggled to untangle the web he wove. And yet, he always emerged with a smile, a glimmer in his eyes that promised more mischief, more twists, more fire in the hearts of those who thought they could predict him. One day, in a daring jest, Loki became a fish and swam unseen into the great river that ran beneath Asgard. There, he stole a jewel from a giant merchant, leaving the creature cursing at the empty currents. Another night, he became a flame, dancing across the walls of Valhalla, drawing Odin's gaze, only to vanish before the Allfather could grasp him. The gods began to understand something essential. Loki was a storm, unpredictable and untamable. Strength could not hold him, chains could not bind him, words could not restrain him. He was neither friend nor foe, but a force unto himself. And as the winds whispered through the spires of Asgard, carrying his name, every god knew that wherever mischief lurked, Loki was not far behind. In the golden halls, in the quiet shadows, the shapeshifter's laughter echoed, a sound both enchanting and unsettling, reminding all that destiny, when touched by Loki, was never simple and never certain. Thor, the Thunderer, the god of storms and strength, and Loki, the shapeshifter, the trickster of shadows. At first glance, they were opposites forged to clash. Thor's laughter shook the halls like rolling thunder. Loki's smile slipped in like a secret wind. Yet, despite their differences, an unlikely bond formed between them, one as complicated as it was dangerous. They embarked on adventures that tested both muscle and mind. Where Thor relied on Mjolnir to crush obstacles, Loki relied on Cunning to turn impossible odds into victory. Together, they were unstoppable, a combination of brute force and subtle genius. And yet, even in triumph, tension simmered beneath their camaraderie. Thor never fully trusted Loki, and Loki, in turn, saw the limitations of pure strength. One story passed down in whispered awe. When giants tried to ambush a caravan of Asgardian treasures, Thor's hammer smashed through the front lines, while Loki, disguised as a shadow, misled the giants into collapsing their own traps. The victory was celebrated, yet the gods never forgot that it had been Loki who orchestrated the key moves. Thor might have saved the day, but Loki controlled the game. Their brotherhood was a dance of light and shadow. Thor would bellow, demanding honesty and valor. Loki would smirk, twisting words like a serpent coiling around a tree. In moments of peril, Loki's schemes saved Thor's life. In moments of arrogance, Thor's strength restrained Loki's ambitions. They needed each other, though neither would fully admit it. And in those rare evenings, when the golden hall fires reflected off Thor's hammer and Loki's mischievous grin, the two would laugh, an uneasy, electric laughter, knowing that while one fought with strength and the other with wit, together they could challenge the very limits of fate. But even as the bond strengthened, a shadow loomed. Loki's mind wandered always to paths the gods feared to tread. And while Thor remained loyal, unaware of the storms too. Come, Loki's laughter hinted at schemes that could one day shake even the foundations of their brotherhood. Though Loki walked among the gods as blood brother to Odin and companion to Thor, he was never fully accepted. Even in Asgard's golden halls, whispers followed him like shadows. The son of giants cannot be trusted, murmured the wise ones. His laughter hides knives, it warned the warriors. Loki, ever perceptive, did not deny it. He wore their suspicion as a cloak, letting it sharpen his wits while he danced on the edge of their patience. His first real conflicts arose not from malice, but from curiosity and ambition. A feast turned into chaos when Loki, bored, switched the mead in Odin's horn with a potion that revealed every secret spoken that night. Alliances frayed, friendships strained, and the gods, though unharmed, found themselves questioning one another. Thor's temper flared, but Loki's grin never faltered. "I only seek truth," he said lightly, though none were convinced. Yet it was never outright rebellion that defined him, it was subtle subversion. He would place doubt in Heimdall's mind, twist words during council, or misplace a magical artifact just to see what would unravel. Each act was a test, a lesson, a glimpse into the mind of the trickster. Some called it cleverness, others whispered of danger too great to ignore. The paradox of Loki became clear. He saved Asgard in one breath, and endangered it in the next. A bridge between victory and ruin, friend and foe, chaos and order. Odin, wise though he was, watched with a mixture of admiration and unease. Even Thor, strong and fearless, learned that brute force could not predict or contain Loki's cunning. In these early conflicts, Loki discovered his true power, not in fists or weapons, but in the malleable minds of gods. Each doubt sown, each plan twisted, added threads to the tapestry of destiny that only he could see in its entirety. And as the winds of Asgard whispered through the golden halls, Loki's laughter answered, a haunting promise of mischief yet to come. It was a day of laughter that turned to chaos in an instant. Sif, Thor's golden-haired wife, stood beneath the sun, her hair flowing like molten light over the fields of Asgard. Loki, ever restless and mischievous, could not resist the temptation. With a silent, nimble movement, he approached and severed the strands of her hair, letting them drift away like threads of sunlight stolen by shadows. When Thor discovered the deed, his rage was a tempest, shaking the hall and rattling the golden columns. The thunder god's roar could have toppled mountains, but Loki did not flee. Instead, he smiled with an audacity only he could bear, and promised to make amends in a way that would astonish even the gods. True to his word, Loki journeyed to the dwarfs, the master smiths hidden in the deepest caverns beneath the earth. There, he bargained, deceived, and persuaded them to craft hair for Sif from pure gold, strands that glimmered like the sun itself, growing naturally and shining with eternal brilliance. But he did not stop there. From the same dwarfs, Loki procured treasures that would shape the destiny of Asgard: Thor's mighty hammer Mjolnir, the magical ship Skidbladnir, and Odin's spear Gungnir. Through this single act, Loki revealed the duality of his nature. He was the cause of trouble, the harbinger of fear, yet also the bringer of solutions that no one else could imagine. The gods, though grateful for the gifts, could never fully forgive the audacity of his trick. For every boon he provided, a shadow of mistrust remained, whispering that such cleverness could just as easily serve ruin. In the echo of Thor's stormy voice and Sif's quiet oar, Loki's laughter danced, a sound both infuriating and enthralling. The halls of Asgard had learned a truth that day: mischief and brilliance often wear the same face, and no god could predict which would triumph when Loki was near. From the very beginning, Loki walked a narrow path between light and shadow. In one moment, he saved Asgard from ruin. In the next, he sowed chaos that threatened to undo it. His nature was a paradox that even the wisest gods could not unravel. Thor's hammer might crush mountains, but Loki's cunning could shatter trust and twist destinies with a whisper. It was said that the walls of Asgard, the treasures of the gods, even the lives of mortals and immortals alike, often hung by the thread of Loki's schemes. When a giant plotted to storm the halls, it was Loki who redirected the threat, guiding the foe into traps he alone foresaw. Yet, no act of heroism could cleanse the suspicion that followed him, for every trick he played carried the mark of danger. He became indispensable and insufferable. Odin valued his mind, yet feared the unpredictability behind his grin. Thor trusted him, yet braced for the inevitable moment when mischief would spill into outright betrayal. Loki thrived in this tension, for he understood that power often hides in the space between love and fear, loyalty and treachery. Even the winds seemed to respond to him, whispering secrets only he could hear. Loki, the savior and betrayer, existed not as a god or a giant, but as a force of nature. He was the storm that could bring rain to parched lands or lightning to strike down the unprepared. Every step he took in the golden halls echoed with possibility and peril, leaving those around him uncertain where his allegiance truly lay. And so, the legend grew, the trickster who could create miracles and disasters alike, whose loyalty was as shifting as his form, whose laughter carried both delight and dread. Loki was not merely present in Asgard, he was inevitable, a reminder that even the mightiest halls of gods could be undone by wit alone. Even as Loki walked among the gods, a shadow lingered behind him, a legacy of mischief that would grow beyond his own shape and cunning. Loki's children were not mere mortals, nor even ordinary gods. They were harbingers of chaos, born from his cunning and his dark alliances. Among them were Fenrir, the monstrous wolf whose jaws would one day threaten the gods themselves, Jormungandr, the serpent that encircled the oceans of Midgard, a living chain of impending doom, and Hel, ruler of the underworld, whose gaze would chill even the bravest of souls. These children were reflections of Loki's dual nature, part cunning, part destruction, impossible to control. Odin foresaw the danger but could not prevent their birth, for prophecy moves faster than any godly hand. Even Loki, in his restless ambition, understood that his offspring were more than mere children. They were instruments of fate, extensions of his own spirit, and keys to the chaos that simmered beneath Asgard's shining halls. Loki watched them grow with a mixture of pride and shadowed dread. Fenrir's teeth gnawed at the air, a reminder that even love can bear teeth. Jormungandr twisted through the waves, a silent threat to Midgard's shores. Hel's cold gaze promised that death and life were always balanced upon a knife's edge, and that nothing, neither god nor giant, could escape the inevitability of their power. The gods, alarmed, demanded their restraint. But restraint was a concept foreign to Loki. His children were not mistakes, they were destiny incarnate. And as their presence grew, so too did the tension in Asgard. Whispers of doom rode the winds, and Loki's laughter, as ever, echoed above it all, a chilling melody of pride, cunning, and foreboding. In these children, Loki saw both himself and the inescapable consequences of his nature. They were his creations, yet independent, unstoppable, a mirror of the chaos that had always followed him. And in the hearts of the gods, a fear took root that would grow with every passing year, that the trickster's legacy would one day challenge even the throne of Odin. Beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, in the winding caverns lit by glowing forges, lived the dwarfs, masters of craft, guardians of treasures beyond mortal imagining. It was said that no lock could hold them, no hammer could match their skill, and no god could sway them, except Loki. For he possessed a tongue as silvered as Valhalla's spires, and a mind as sharp as the edge of Mjolnir itself. When the gods desired treasures of unmatched power, gifts that would ensure victory and glory, Loki descended into the depths. He bargained, flattered, deceived, and, when necessary, threatened. The dwarfs, proud and stubborn, resisted at first, for they could sense the trickster's shadow even in his smile. Yet Loki's cunning was relentless. He spun riddles, whispered impossibilities, and revealed secrets that only he could know, bending the dwarf's pride into cooperation. From their forges came wonders, the hammer Mjolnir, whose strikes could level mountains, The ship Sleipnir, that folded into a bag yet sailed the seas faster than wind itself, and Cunning, Odin's spear, guided by unerring fate. Loki, as ever, played the role of both troublemaker and benefactor. He sowed risk and reaped reward, leaving the dwarfs amazed, annoyed, and forever wary of the trickster's cunning. Yet there was a lesson hidden in every gift. The dwarfs knew, as did the gods, that Loki's interventions were never without consequence. Every creation carried a seed of mischief, a shadow of chaos. A hammer that could protect could also destroy. A ship that could sail oceans could also vanish when needed most. Through these acts, Loki reminded the gods that ingenuity and danger are often inseparable. As he ascended from the depths, treasures in hand, Loki's laughter echoed in the dark halls, mingling with the hammering of dwarven forges. It was a sound both exultant and unsettling, a herald that while Loki could grant miracles, he could just as easily twist them into calamity. The trickster's reputation grew, and even in Asgard, the gods whispered with awe and apprehension. A Loki moves where none can follow, shaping fate with every step. In the grand feasting halls of Asgard, the air shimmered with warmth, golden light reflecting off banners and armor, and the scent of roasted meats and spiced mead filling every corner. Here, the gods gathered to celebrate victories, honor the fallen, and plot the future. Yet even in these moments of revelry, Loki moved like a shadow threading through sunlight, a presence as captivating as it was dangerous. He spoke with a voice that could charm and wound in the same breath. A word from Loki could make warriors laugh or spark jealousy. A glance could sow doubt in the hearts of those who thought themselves invincible. He praised one god's strength while hinting at flaws, offered counsel laced with riddles, and whispered secrets that made alliances tremble. No god, not even Odin himself, could predict whether Loki's jest was harmless or a trap. Feasts became his theater, and every conversation a performance. Thor's boisterous laughter would clash with Loki's subtle smirks, Odin's commanding presence was challenged by sly insinuations, and the lesser gods could not tell where mischief ended and truth began. In this delicate dance, Loki demonstrated that power was not always in arms or magic. It could reside entirely in wit, persuasion, and timing. Yet the trickster was never cruel without reason. Often, his words served to teach, to illuminate hidden truths, or to guide events toward outcomes unseen. A debate at the table, a cleverly turned insult, or a fabricated rumor might avert disaster, uncover hidden danger, or reveal a god's hidden flaw. Loki's brilliance was a double-edged sword, both threatening and indispensable. The winds outside the hall seemed to echo his laughter, curling around spires and banners, carrying tales of cleverness and caution alike. Every god at those feasts learned an essential truth. Loki was a storm contained in form, an unpredictable force whose presence could make golden halls tremble. And though some whispered in fear, others leaned closer, captivated by the one who could twist words into fate itself. Beneath the laughter and clever words, a fire burned within Loki, a hunger far older than mischief, older than Asgard itself. It was not hunger for gold, nor desire for honor, nor envy of Thor's might. It was a craving for influence, for shaping the fates of gods and men alike, for leaving a mark upon destiny itself. Each jest, each cunning act, each risk he took was a thread woven into the tapestry of his ambition. The golden halls could contain him, the laws of gods could restrain him, yet the trickster's mind wandered far beyond. Loki observed the patterns of power, the loyalties and fears of his companions, and the secrets that even Odin dared not voice aloud. In the quiet moments, when the hall fires dimmed and the stars of Alfheim shone through Asgard's windows, Loki dreamed of greater games, plans that could tilt realms, shake thrones, and redefine what it meant to hold sway over life and death. He tested the boundaries subtly at first. He whispered rumors, suggested alliances, and nudged events toward outcomes that would reveal the weaknesses of gods. Each success fed the fire within him, each failure sharpened his resolve. The gods began to notice. Whispers of concern became murmurs of suspicion. Even Odin, bound by their blood oath, felt the cold edge of uncertainty whenever Loki smiled. Yet, ambition alone did not make him cruel. Loki's power was in the balance, the art of knowing when to act, when to jest, and when to unleash chaos. He saw the threads that others could not, and he understood that influence often came wrapped in gifts of danger and delight. Through Mischief, he shaped the halls of Asgard without raising suspicion, guiding fate with a hand both invisible and unavoidable. The winds outside carried his laughter, a sound that thrilled and warned alike. In that laughter was a promise. Loki's hunger could never be sated, and the golden halls, no matter how vast, would never contain the cunning of the trickster. The games had only begun, and the echoes of his schemes would ripple through the 9 realms, far beyond the reach of any god's hand. Even in the golden halls of Asgard, Loki's mind wandered to shadows unseen. While the gods feasted and celebrated their victories, the trickster's thoughts stretched far beyond the present, toward a time when the 9 realms would tremble. Ragnarok, the end of all things, whispered to him in the winds, a distant storm he both feared and longed for. In secret corners, Loki plotted, weaving schemes as intricate as the roots of Yggdrasil itself. Every act of mischief, every trick played upon friend or foe, was a step toward preparing the stage. He spoke in riddles, left signs and omens, and nudged events so subtly that the gods could not trace his hand. Yet beneath the cunning, there was purpose, a dark brilliance that only he could perceive. He pondered the fates of his children, Fenrir's jaws that would one day threaten even Odin, Jormungandr coiled around Midgard, ready to spill the oceans, hell awaiting the souls of the fallen. All were pieces in a game far grander than the golden halls, a game that would end with fire, ice, and shadow entwined. Even as he laughed, his laughter carried a chill. It was a sound that promised chaos and cunning, a reminder that Loki's loyalty was never absolute. He was both protector and destroyer, the spark that could save or ignite ruin. The winds seemed to carry his name across the realms, whispering, "The trickster watches. The end will be clever, and it will be mine." And so, the first chapter of his legend closed, not with violence, nor with triumph, but with anticipation. The gods of Asgard, mighty and proud, did not yet know that the boy of fire and shadows, the Shape-Shifter, the trickster, had already begun his journey toward destiny. He was laughter and doom intertwined, and the echoes of his schemes would one day shake the heavens themselves. The golden halls shone with light, yet in every shadow, Loki's grin lingered, a reminder that even the brightest realms contain darkness, and that the trickster's tale was only beginning.